Story 1. Carl Sagan called it decades ago in 1995. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues. When the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority. When, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide, almost without noticing, back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, with 30-second sound bites now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, and especially a kind of celebration of ignorance. Story 2. Worsening literacy rates and declining basic math skills are concerning trends. We have been lowering standards for decades, and the impact is evident. Story 3. The complete lack of critical thinking skills and media literacy is concerning. Many individuals accept information as truth simply because it is presented on a website or in the news, without conducting their own research. It is alarming how often people take things at face value when a quick search can verify multiple sources in less than 10 seconds. We live in an age where information is readily available at our fingertips, yet we still struggle to think critically. For the record, I am referring to accredited resources, not social media discussions that dismiss the information shared by specialists on reputable news networks simply because it does not align with personal beliefs. Story 4. The sense of entitlement that arises in individuals who have not accomplished anything meaningful in their lives. Story 5. We have unlimited access to all the information we want, yet a large portion of people are still receiving it from select sources. Story 6. We conduct studies on this in nearly every country. Literacy, critical thinking, logical reasoning, attention span, and standardized test scores are all on a downward trend. Story 7. Endless actionable evidence indicates that we are moving at full speed toward ecological collapse and the doom of our species, unless humanity changes course. Story 8. The fact that measles is spreading again, even though it was considered eradicated around 2000, is concerning because we have a very effective vaccine against it. Story 9. Do we just acknowledge everything that has happened in the last 10 years? It's not that anyone is less intelligent. It's that I believe most educational systems aren't designed to counteract the misinformation spread by the internet. Story 10. We have lived long enough without natural selection that those who would have been selected against have been allowed to breed instead. Story 11. Some people are unwilling to recognize a fact. They would much prefer to deny something without providing evidence. Story 12. You can say the most ridiculous things against science. If you stick to it, eventually some people will believe in it. Look at the anti-vaccine community. The Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who wrote that theory, lied to gain fame more than 20 years ago. He was removed from the medical register in the United Kingdom in 2010, meaning he could no longer practice medicine. His study was retracted by the journal that published it, and numerous subsequent studies found no evidence supporting his claims. Now, the anti-vaccine community consists of millions of followers who would rather see their children suffer than allow them to be vaccinated. Story 13. The number of people immediately replying to this post is concerning. The high percentage of individuals unable to construct a grammatically correct sentence, even when given ample time, is alarming. Story 14. The individual causing significant disruption to the global economy is compelling evidence. Wouldn't you agree? Story 15. A look at the top YouTubers at the moment. Additionally, it is interesting that people pay for content they can find online for free. Story 16. There isn't. Reddit may not want to hear this, but people are intelligent and constantly making innovative advancements. We are still in the midst of a technological boom. Worldwide interconnectivity now exposes us to low-quality information more than ever before. It's easier to perceive the world as doomed and foolish because negative news consistently outperforms positive news. Story 17. Improper use of "to" and "to" is becoming more common on social media, including posts by professionals, The incorrect use of there, and there also falls into this category. Story 18. People don't listen these days with logical, analytical thought in mind. They quickly jump to conclusions and only believe what they want to hear. Story 19. More and more people are not using search engines or conducting research. They are simply asking ChatGPT, OpenAI, Grok, or other artificial intelligence systems for the most basic information. Story 20. The United States voted for a convicted felon. There are people who do not believe in the efficacy of vaccines but do believe in fairies and astrology. Additionally, there are flat earthers and climate change deniers. Instead of becoming smarter, we are becoming increasingly less informed. Story 21. Humans are, on average, becoming smarter, at least in terms of intelligence quotient, and that is an objective fact. This improvement is largely due to better nutrition. Story 22. The fact is that not even 1% of the country would survive in the wild if the collapse of society happened next week. Story 23. Rejection of science and intellectualism feels like just a couple of years ago when flat earthers, anti-vaccine advocates, and book bans were a rarity. Story 24. Opinions, some of which I agree with, suggest that there is no undeniable proof that humans are not getting smarter. As a species, there is substantial evidence that we are collectively becoming smarter, possibly at an accelerating rate. Story 25. It seems there are many more people doing foolish things these days, significantly more than in the past. Story 26. People are paying for content and supporting influencers on platforms like TikTok and Twitch. I understand that it's their source of entertainment, but giving them money all the time is something I cannot comprehend. Story 27. The collective masses are pushing the human population to unsustainable levels. Why continue building the tower until it collapses? Story 28. Some are helping make the rest of us less knowledgeable. When I was growing up, there was criticism of calculators making math class too easy. We could just enter the numbers, get an answer, and not actually learn the process. Now, calculators are a standard application on phones with access to the internet and artificial intelligence. We are training ourselves to let other tools do the work. At some point in the near future, WALL-E will have to be reclassified as historical fiction. Story 29. Despite countless examples over the years of the authoritarian playbook being used and resulting in suffering for millions, the masses continue to be drawn in by obvious authoritarians. Story 30. Go to any public posting place and pay attention to grammar, punctuation, and spelling. I am not perfect and I was not, in any way, a good student, but come on, people. Story 31. Someone has the compiled file of everything ever asked of ChatGPT. Reading this would be my proof of human stupidity. Story 32. Most people have never been that smart. Intelligent individuals can become stuck in a single perspective and remain inflexible. There is little motivation for anyone to improve, so they do not. Story 33. The way people obsess over politics and cannot think beyond their feelings and ideologies while intentionally surrounding themselves only with like-minded individuals leads to continuous shouting in the same echo chamber, believing everything their biased media sources tell them. Instead of learning, respecting, and understanding different views and aspects of life, if politics is your identity and all you do is vote while excluding those you disagree with from your life, you aren't doing anything meaningful. You're just following the herd, which is not smart. Story 34. The existence of foolish individuals who are loud does not disprove the existence of intelligent individuals who are quiet. Story 35. Because brain rot exists, this is the answer. What if brain rot never existed? Do you think it would be a better generation? Story 36. Humans have been dumbing down for millennia. They have essentially domesticated themselves, and domesticated animals are generally less intelligent than their wild counterparts. Why, for example, are tribal people in New Guinea often smarter than individuals from more civilized societies? In civilized societies, there are significantly fewer dangers for people, such as food safety, laws protecting individuals, and institutions that mitigate the impact of disasters. In contrast, tribal people live in very dangerous environments where they must adapt and be clever to secure enough food and avoid being harmed by others or wild animals. This creates a selection bias toward highly intelligent individuals in tribal communities, while civilization tends to protect the weak and less intelligent, allowing them to reproduce and consequently leading to an overall decline in average intelligence. However, civilizations often prevail in confrontations with tribal groups, as they function somewhat like a collective hive mind, albeit in a more chaotic manner. This results in emergent properties such as advanced technology and the spread of diseases. Therefore, it is expected that the more advanced a society becomes, the lower the average intelligence of the individuals within it. Story 37. The warning not to eat and the usage instructions on the back of single-use wipes provided at restaurants are confusing. Story 38. Brain rot, especially from media content, is concerning given the increasing number of people who consume it today. Story 39. We elected possibly the most foolish individual who is also a violent criminal to the highest office for the second time. Story 40. Worsening literacy rates are due to the combined effects of lower education standards and widespread dependency on spell check and autocorrect. There is a considerable decline in critical thinking skills and decreased cognitive capacity for nuance and context. General trends are moving towards anti-intellectualism. TikTok. Story 41. Just look at who is in the White House and how easily so many people were fooled. Who is more foolish, the fool or the fools who follow him? Story 42. The most powerful person in the world, being who he is, was elected democratically to that position again. Story 43. The United States elected a racist, felon, cult leader for the second time who has been lying and gaslighting for years. He has more scandals than any president in recent history and has told us what he was going to do. Now, people are regretting voting for him when they're losing money. Idiocracy should be a mandatory movie played in history class in high school to prevent this from happening. People are presented with evidence of things Trump did, yet they dismiss it as fake news. Some say, I don't care if he shoots someone or assaults someone, I'll still support him. They will then accuse everyone on the left of attending questionable parties. If Trump went to one, they wouldn't care because there is no line he cannot cross in their eyes. He was literally one of Epstein's closest friends, but they always try to accuse someone on the left that they dislike of going to that island. Some people think the earth is flat. Despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, they would rather believe in a conspiracy. The strange thing is, they care more about this than anyone else. Even if the earth were flat, I still have to go to work and pay bills. What do I gain from knowing it's flat? What would scientists around the world gain by collectively tricking us into thinking it's spherical? There have been some who proved it was round while trying to prove it was flat, but they are silent now compared to the noise they made when believing it was flat. This current young generation seems very uncultured and uninformed about fairly recent history. I don't know if the pandemic made them grow up chronically online, but when I was growing up, there were things that were common knowledge because we either learned them in school or our parents taught us. People argue online about simple facts that can be easily searched. We have such easy access to information, yet many people don't use it. Sometimes it takes just 30 seconds. People will argue for a while, being completely wrong the whole time. This is not like the past when there were no smartphones and we had to talk to someone face to face. This is two individuals already online. Story 44. The fact that TikTok was unbanned means you can go on YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, but these are making us less intelligent. Story 45. Even when people are highly aware of bad actors from foreign countries and artificial intelligence bots on social media platforms, there is virtually no skepticism around interactions with anonymous users on the internet. Even those who claim to exercise skepticism often mislead themselves and others about how much they are truly engaging their critical thinking skills while conversing online. Story 46. Some are becoming smarter, while others are simply accepting false information without questioning it, making them appear less informed. Story 47. The world as a whole and some individual nations and people have enough wealth to address almost all the problems facing humanity, yet they do not. Story 48. The Flynn effect is reversing itself. Story 49. The King James Bible, despite its ideological flaws and often morbid depictions, is one of the most remarkable pieces of literature ever written. The Book of Mormon makes Twilight fan fiction look like the greatest literary achievement of mankind. Mark Twain described it as chloroform in print. We can't even write a good holy book anymore. Story 50. Size. It feels like the United States has let me down since I served in Vietnam. A draft dodger became the leader visiting other countries and, when asked, says he's Canadian. For goodness sake, I feel so pathetic living in a troubled country. Story 51. The fact that we have to put labels on things that say, do not eat, or this packaging is not a toy. Story 52. The fact that no one figures out things by thinking about them anymore. All you have to do is search online. Kills imagination and intuition. Story 53. You want undeniable proof of something that has no quantifiable comparison measure. I think that might be enough undeniable proof for you. Story 54. I think one of the biggest issues is the lack of figuring things out independently. Almost everything now has a do-it-yourself tutorial, which is great, don't get me wrong. Every user interface is simplified with understandable terminology and visuals to guide users. When I was younger, broadband wasn't widely available, but when we got it, I became the home information technology person. There wasn't much instruction, you just had to try different things. Now, it feels more like a monkey see, monkey do approach rather than fostering fundamental understanding. I observe this in my job with new hires. Story 55. When I was in school, I learned how to do math. My children are in school, and they are learning how to use a Texas Instruments 84 calculator. Story 56. Scroll through YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram Reels for 1 hour on a new account without pressing the like buttons. You will find your evidence. Story 57. America has doubled down on becoming less intelligent, which is concerning. However, other countries are becoming smarter. Story 58. People are smarter today than in any previous generation. My grandfather and my father once discussed how to respond to COVID-19. He suggested that if COVID-19 originated in China, we should bomb the factory where it was produced. My grandfather was intelligent for his time, but germ theory was not part of the education he received in school. Story 59. We have not become smarter in decades, perhaps even centuries. We simply have better tools. Soon we will have the ability to destroy the planet, and sadly, we likely will. This also answers the Fermi paradox. We advance, but we do not get smarter. Story 60. I am not sure people are becoming less intelligent. It seems that as we continue to expand our realms of knowledge, those who cannot follow even basic logic become increasingly obvious in their ignorance. Essentially, it is much harder to conceal one's lack of understanding these days. Some individuals have completely reversed their stance and embraced their ignorance as a badge of honor. Story 61. The head of the Central Intelligence Agency stated in an interview that the most powerful weapon is ignorance. If you tell a lie long enough, people will believe it and, most importantly, defend the lie that is wrong from the start. A lot of that is happening today. Story 62. I am 80% serious when I say that people should be ashamed for finding brain rot memes funny. Before you suggest that I am being an older generation person and that the memes we grew up on were not any better, at least those were somewhat original. People created their own takes and gave individual twists on them. Nowadays, memes consist of a red block with the text, "You should find this funny." They are not genuinely funny and are only considered humorous because people are told they should be. Story 63. I think an important factor to consider is that many of us are smarter than ever before, but we are aware of how much people aren't. Story 64. It is proven that smarter, more intelligent people tend to have fewer children, while less educated individuals often have more children. Story 65. The popularity of shorts and reels on all social networks, including YouTube, demonstrates their value as sources of knowledge when used wisely. Story 66. You're on Reddit? You must have seen about 40 posts before you wrote that message. As soon as I left this post, I didn't even have to scroll down. There was a news report about immigration and customs enforcement in America deporting another innocent man. They acknowledged it was wrong but refused to try to bring him back. Story 67. The space is fake set. It's easy to see who were the people in science class questioning the practicality of this knowledge in real life. Story 68. We haven't become smarter in thousands of years. Ancient civilizations were just as intelligent. We simply benefit from their discoveries that we can build upon. Story 69. People are no more or less foolish than at any other time in history. They are more specialized and have access to more information, yes, but they remain as ignorant or intelligent as always. The same reasoning people use to believe or disbelieve in various topics is still applied today. We are literally confronting many of the same issues: classism, racism, greed, nationalism, and the conflict between religion and rationalism. If you don't believe me, check the subreddit devoted to events from 100 years ago, especially the posts from reporters inquiring about the Butler Act in Tennessee that were shared a couple of days ago. Story 70. When car manuals used to teach you how to change a spark plug, they now tell you not to drink battery acid. Story 71. In other posts, teachers mention that students are not reaching the reading level expected for their grade advancement. Story 72. There isn't any. The intelligence quotient system is flawed at best, making it difficult to determine without reasonable doubt whether each generation is getting smarter or less intelligent. Anecdotally, we could mention factors such as cognitive decline or artificial intelligence, but there is no hard evidence to suggest that we are experiencing a significant decrease in intelligence. Conspiracy theorists largely reflect a distrust of large organizations rather than a true measure of intelligence. Many individuals believe certain theories because they have strong distrust in the government. Anecdotally, I have encountered intelligent conspiracy theorists who simply came from unusual backgrounds or upbringings. Story 73. I don't think it's that people aren't getting smarter. Rather, it's that less informed individuals are becoming louder and more confident. Intelligent and mentally stable people don't usually engage in arguments with strangers on the internet. Story 74. Ironically, it is quite unwise to seek anecdotes in an attempt to validate a theory you have. Story 75. Social media applications have given everyone the opportunity to become an expert or influencer, leading to a strong loyalty to their chosen news sources. News was reliable until opinions became intertwined a few decades ago. Story 76. Most of us have devices in our hands that hold knowledge one could only dream of for most of human history. Yet, here we are squandering an opportunity that no other known species has ever had. Story 77. Sending a group of celebrities to low Earth orbit is presented as female empowerment with an all-female crew. However, there was only one crew member who devoted her entire life to studying and training as an astronaut, while these millionaires received a free pass with just a 2-day course. They then attempt to present themselves as astronauts. Additionally, the individual funding the entire operation could eliminate world hunger immediately if he simply paid his taxes. Story 78. Terrible grammar and spelling. Yet some say, this isn't English class. It doesn't matter. How can this be accepted? You are using a different word than the one you intend because you cannot spell. Story 79. People are falling for the dire wolf publicity stunt. No species was actually resurrected. No actual dire wolf DNA was used. Making a gray wolf bigger and white does not create a completely different extinct species. Yet there are comments like, stop nitpicking, just appreciate they did something amazing, and suddenly everyone is an expert. I'd rather listen to the actual scientists who created a dire wolf. This whole situation resembles a P.T. Barnum-style show designed to appeal to a crowd. It is similar to circus sideshows that graft the horn buds of baby goats together and then parade them as real living unicorns. This sets a dangerous precedent because they are now planning to cut back on wildlife protection, believing they can recreate them anyway. Story 80. When politicians tell people blatant lies that are very easy to prove false and they support them anyway. Story 81. Religion still exists. Imagine aliens observing us fight and kill one another because we disagree on whose invisible friend is the real, only, and true invisible friend. Story 82. Because religion is still important and influential, some people might consider it an unlikely possibility that fulfills certain mental needs. You can choose to believe in it, but it shouldn't have the impact on culture, life, and politics that it currently has. Story 83. Americans believe that we did not go to the moon and that the International Space Station is a soundstage. The moon footage was broadcast for all to see, including Russia, and they did not dispute it. Story 84. I hate to say it, but it's Trump. It is such a clear sign of idiocy and the lack of critical thinking winning. Story 85. We prefer to receive information in small, manageable pieces from a limited source rather than reading actual books or engaging in discussions with friends and acquaintances. Many people find it strange to have conversations or ask random questions. There is little motivation to learn new, uncomfortable facts for the sake of knowledge. We often settle for simplistic knowledge designed for a young child and claim to understand the facts. Story 86. Increasing reliance on artificial intelligence, along with multiple studies confirming that people using large language models frequently experience cognitive decline and begin to personify and care for these models. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.